Good afternoon. What I'm here to tell you about today is over the last 25 years, the rate of obesity has doubled across our nation. The rate of obesity in every single state is greater than 20%. In 31 of those states, the rate of obesity is 30% of the population. Now compare that to 1985. No state had greater than 15% obesity. So what is obesity? Obesity is a chronic medical condition. Simply put, you have too much body fat and weight on your body. And how this is calculated is simply by taking your height and your weight and putting it into this little magical calculator, and it pops out a number. Now, there's other things included in this, and you can talk to your doctor if you have other chronic conditions going on. That kind of adds to your diagnosis. So the number alone isn't just a factor, but it is one of the major playing ones. So based on this number, if you score 30 or higher, you are in the obese category. So what is the problem with obesity? Obesity, unfortunately, increases significantly our risk for other chronic medical conditions, cardiovascular disease, we have strokes, diabetes is a huge killer, depression, osteoarthritis. With extra added weight, it is so hard on our joints and our bones to carry that extra weight. It will, over time, start to wear everything down, as it does with the heart, as it does with our vessels and everything else. Now, why can I talk about obesity? About 9 or 10 years ago, I started to exercise and lose some weight, and I did. I lost about over 20 pounds, and I managed to keep most of that weight off. I do yo-yo diet. I am not guilt-free. I love to indulge, but I plugged in the numbers from where I was before, and my BMI was 27. I was considered overweight. I was only 3 points away from being obese. Um, there's many causes of obesity. A big player is genetics and heredity. My mom, for example, is obese. She's been obese from probably a baby. I've seen pictures of her. Now she's healthier than she ever has been in her life now. She walks her 10,000 steps. She eats right. She doesn't eat junk. She doesn't indulge on sweets, but she has been and always will be obese. My dad, on the other hand, is underweight. So that's a perfect example of genetics. It may be caused by medications you take. It may be caused by other diseases even. But the most common factor in obesity is basically the amount of energy we expend versus the amount of energy we put in our mouth. And what I mean by the amount of energy we put in our mouth is the food we eat. It's not just the amount, it's the kinds of foods. And you have to match that also with the amount of activity. So there's two factors at play here. You've got the fast-paced lifestyle with advancements in technology. It's greatly increased what we can do, how fast we can do it, but unfortunately it's also increased the amount of free time we have, and we have to expend less energy doing a lot of things that we used to not have to. The other, I think, is a huge player in obesity is the foods we put in our mouth today. They're completely different. If you look at the shelves back in 1985, we'll just use that year, it's so much different than what it is today. The foods now are, we eat and consume a lot more processed foods. Processed foods, there's different categories of processed food. So we'll start with minimally processed food. Basically, when you take animals, plants, or fungi and remove them from nature, that is minimally processed food. And then you have your first group where you may take and you can grind it, you can dry it, uh, take the dead parts out, make it edible, palatable, a little more appetizing for eating. You're not altering the nutritional value, but you are changing the form. That's minimally processed. Group 2 is if you add stuff, or say you pasteurize food, or you add salt or oils just to, it could extend the shelf life, make the foods more palatable. It still doesn't alter the nutritional value. Step 3 foods are basically what you would have in your kitchen that varies the food we eat, adding vinegar, adding salt, adding molasses, adding honey, stuff like that. And then you have group 4, and those, especially back in group 2, it usually contains 2 or 3 ingredients. If you look on the package, say you get nuts that are salted. You've got nuts, you've got salt. That's a minimally processed food. It does not alter. But once you get to step 4 or group 4, it usually has 5 or 6 ingredients or more. If you look on these labels nowadays, you can't even pronounce what's in there. It has more than your basic stabilizers in there, has more than your preservatives in there. It takes that food and it makes it into, it adds chemicals and makes it into such a form so that it enhances our taste buds. These scientists are not dumb. These food manufacturers are so smart. They make these foods addicting and they make them what they call hyper palatable. And that is one of the huge problems we have with our obesity epidemic. These foods are, we're consuming more of them. They're more calorie packed. So it is so much easier for somebody to grab a bag of chips or a bag of popcorn off the shelf instead of going and getting an apple and slicing it and eating it. I'll tell you what, the chemicals that they put in that cheesy caramely popcorn are the best. Now, why am I concerned about this? I am concerned about this because I have a 20-year-old son. Unfortunately, genetics do not play on his part. I have some, but his dad is about 6 foot tall. He's well over 300 pounds. He is obese. He's always been a big dude, always been a big football player. Well, Cody is, unfortunately, takes a lot after him, and my genes, I don't have any skinny genes per se. He's 20 years old. I've already watched his waist size grow. I know what obesity can do. I plugged his height and his weight into the calculator, and he at 20 years old is already in the category of being obese. I see his dad walking around with his joint problems. He's always battling back pain. He's battling diabetes now, and he's pretty soon going to have to start getting joint replacements. And he's not even 50 years old yet. So that is my big, huge concern for obesity. I don't want my son to have the decreased quality of life that all these other diseases are going to cause. And it increases the mortality rate. The American Medical Association puts out a journal, publishes a journal monthly, and they're peer-reviewed articles. And one of them made the statement that for every 10% more or increased your diet is of these ultra-processed or ultra-refined foods, that increases your mortality rate by 14%. That is huge. That's a big statistic, and that's one that's actually under our control. So take it upon yourself. We don't have control of everything. but what we put in our mouth and what we do or choose not to do for physical activity is in our control. It may take some help, it may take some education, but just take obesity is killing our nation, it's killing our kids. It's just becoming such the norm now. But it can and it will lead to a decreased quality of life. So take control of yourself and just a few simple things. Have a salad instead of the bag of chips. Have an apple instead of the processed milkshake. I know it's not a substitute and I know the milkshake tastes better, but you also have to think about how you're influencing everybody else around you. Thank you.